Everybody, welcome to the call tonight. We are so excited to have everybody on. This topic especially is one dear to my heart. We have a lot of issues going on in America, and we have amazing research to say that gut health is where it's at. So I am so privileged to be introducing our speaker tonight, who is somebody near and dear to me because, well, she just happens to be 2 years older than me and my sister. So my sister Kylie is an RN at Vanderbilt, and she is she's just got a lot of knowledge and a really good head on her shoulders when it comes to understanding where gut is in a relation with nutrition. So with that said, Kylie, go and take it away.
Thank you so much, Melody, and thank you guys so much for being on tonight. I am so excited that you all are here, and really my goal tonight is to teach and inspire you to take healthy back, because chronic disease is so prevalent in our country, and research out there today is saying that it is not related to our genes, folks. It's related to what goes in our mouth. So tonight I'm just going to teach you what I know and hopefully inspire you to take your healthy back and start a path to health and wellness. So I'm going to share my screen with you because I've got a PowerPoint. So if you are on the phone, that's okay, because it will be recorded and you can see it. We'll record it, and so that way you can watch it. So a little bit about me. I'm Cylie Bitler, and my background is in healthcare. I spent 12 years in pharmacy, and for the last 5 years, I've been at the bedside as an acute care nurse at Vanderbilt in the neuro-intensive care unit. And really my passion is people and education, and really the education of disease prevention and elimination through food. And like I said earlier, everything goes through our mouth. So our gut is so important, and the health of our gut is so important. And my story starts with my son, Cohen. So this is my youngest son, Cohen. He's 7 years old, and today he is a happy, healthy, thriving 7-year-old boy. But at 9 months old, he got his first fever. And so I called his pediatrician and brought him in the next day, and he had a double ear infection. And I thought to myself, he's 9 months old. My other son is 2 years old. I work at night, so I'm with my kids all day long. They're not in daycare. How does he get an ear infection? Well, that thought quickly passed, and he got on an antibiotic, and he started his journey on antibiotics, which was a 2-year-long journey. He was on antibiotics probably every other month or even more frequently to help rid the fluid and infection in his ears. And when 2 years went by and there was no change, his pediatrician recommended that we start seeing an ENT. So I take Cohen to an ear, nose, and throat doctor. And he was pretty conservative, and he said, you know, let's just wait and see. Let's give it 6 weeks and see if the fluid and infection will clear on its own. We were back in his office 6 weeks later, and there's no change. So at 2 years old, Cohen got his first set of ear tubes, and I thought, this is going to be the answer. He's going to be able to start hearing again. He's going to be able to start talking, and all of the antibiotics are going to be over, and I'm going to have a happy baby again. Well, the next month, I was back in the ENT's office because he was febrile, and sure enough, his tubes were clogged because he had a really bad ear infection. And so to go to that doctor, that specialty doctor, was a $40 copay. And he wrote me a prescription for a drop to clear his tubes that cost $60. And I thought, okay, we're going to get this tube cleared, and if he ever gets another ear infection, it's going to be all good. Well, 2 months later, back in the office with the same problem. We spent the next year paying $100 every other month to clear that ear tube because the infection and the fluid was not going away. So when he was 3 years old, the ear tubes fell out, and his ENT said, let's, take another conservative approach, wait 6 weeks and see if the fluid and infection clears. And as you could probably guess, it did not. And so at this picture of Cohen was his 3rd birthday, and that was his 2nd set of ear tubes. At that point, he also had his adenoids removed because the physician thought, well, maybe if we take out the adenoids, that would help promote his eustachian tube to drain. We spent another year under the same exact circumstances, in and out of the ENT office, $100 every time to clear the tube because he was still having infection and fluid. At the end of that year, when Cohen was almost 4, God opened my eyes to question that path. And I asked his ENT, I said, we're spending all of this money. Why is Cohen not getting better? Why is he still getting ear infections? And he said, Cohen's probably going to need ear tubes until he's 13. That's just how some kids are. And I smiled, and I very politely said, well, we're going to get a second opinion. And I decided to take Cohen to a pediatric chiropractor in our hometown, and her name was Dr. Melissa. And she gave me some really good advice, and she said, why don't you take a look at what you're feeding Cohen? And that was the very first time in the 4 years that we had been dealing with Cohen's chronic ear infections that someone said, take a look at his diet. I was a nurse. I had been in pharmacy for a long time, and I had no idea what I was feeding my child was actually causing him to have ear infections. So I started to do some research, and what I found was the dairy that I was giving him mixed with the Carnation Instant Breakfast, and its first ingredient was sugar, was mucus causing and bacteria promoting with all the sugar. And today our environment, most Americans are eating the same exact way. They eat a lot of processed food, they eat a lot of fast food, and our environment is heavily toxic. I mean, the water we're drinking, the soil that our food is grown in, the air that we breathe, everything about our environment is toxic, and that is going into our body and creating toxicness. Another thing that I wanted to just kind of take a quick tangent on is antibiotics, and not really, the antibiotics that were prescribed, but rather the antibiotics that we're consuming through our food. I had a friend who was having an adverse reaction to an antibiotic, and she asked me to do some research. And so I pulled out my pharmacology book and I started doing some reading. And I found a little snippet about antibiotic production in our country. And what I read was that 14,000 tons of antibiotics are produced in our country every year. But 90% of those antibiotics are given to animals, not because they're sick and they need to be treated for a bacteria infection, but because they want to be fattened up, because fatter cows make more money. So when you eat the cow that's been fed the antibiotic, that goes into your body. And when you're eating fast food and processed food and drinking the water that's heavily polluted, all of those toxins are going into our gut and wreaking havoc. And so we are creating this toxic environment within our gut. And I thought to myself when I was dealing with Cohen, if what I was putting into his body was causing him to have ear infections, what if I could put something into his body that would cure him? And, that's where I want to spend a good portion of tonight's talk. And I want to start by going back to 400 BC with a Greek physician by the name of Hippocrates. And I love him because he said that if you don't understand food, then you can't understand disease. And today in healthcare, those two are so far away from each other, understanding food and linking it to disease. Today we have cardiologists and endocrinologists and pulmonologists, and they treat you by your disease, and they don't ever look at the root of the problem. And I just want to, poke a little finger at healthcare, because last year we spent over $3 trillion in our country alone on healthcare costs, which is a 300% increase over the last 40 years. And with heart disease being the #1 killer in our country, so I want to take it back. Heart disease is basically high blood pressure. What happens is the work of your heart is pushed because the pressure within your vessels gets so narrow that, you know, your heart has to work harder to push your blood through. So what happens is you go to your doctor and they say, oh, that's your parents' fault. Those are your genes. And so I'm going to give you a blood pressure medication that's going to help relax your vessels. That way your blood doesn't have to pump as hard and your heart doesn't have to work as hard. But stop, because it's not about your parents and the genes that you carry from them. It's about our lifestyle. The reason why healthcare costs in America were over $3 trillion last year isn't because of genes. If that were the case, healthcare costs would have always been high. But it's because of the way that we live our lifestyles. One more fact I want to point out is diabetes. So diabetes among 30-year-olds has increased over 70% in just the last 10 years. So we spend $218 billion a year on diabetes. Now, if that was genetic, don't you think that that money would have solved the genetic issue? But it's not about our genes. It's about our lifestyle. And we have to start focusing about what we put in our mouth in order to heal our chronic disease and the state of our healthcare in our country today. So I recently read a book called Clean Gut by Dr. Alejandro Younger. And Dr. Alejandro Younger was a cardiologist turned functional medicine doctor because he saw the state of his own health declining, you know, by the hours that he put in residency and in medical school. And he wanted to get to the bottom of his issues and not just treat them individually. So he starts his book off with an observation that he made when he was young. So Dr. Alejandro's parents had a huge garden. They had a gardener who would work in the garden, and he would notice all of the trees in the garden, and then he would come up to the trees that had brown leaves. And instead of spending so much time focusing on the leaves, the gardener would dig down into the soil and pay attention to the roots. And so that is why our gut is so important, because just like the roots of a tree is what makes the leaves green when the roots are healthy, our roots are our guts and our intestines. And when those are imbalanced, that's why chronic disease sets in. Chronic disease like heart disease and cancer and autoimmune disease like diabetes and fibromyalgia, depression, all of these are related to the disbalance that we have within our gut. So the toxins that I showed you earlier, the processed food, the fast food, the antibiotics from the animal foods, and just the toxic environment, you know, of our planet right now, all of that goes in through our mouth and it affects our digestive system. And our digestive system has very important roles, that everything that you put in your mouth has to be digested, absorbed, and eliminated. And all of that is done through bacteria. So the reality is that living within us is this happy little ecosystem with over 30,000 unique bacteria to us. And this is what helps us have health and have wellness. What happens is when we have all those toxins in our body, those bacteria get imbalanced. And what happens is we start feeding bad bacteria and we stop feeding good bacteria. So when the bad bacteria outweighs the good bacteria, we create what's called gut dysbiosis. And that gut dysbiosis is what is causing chronic disease. What happens is the dysbiosis, when we have all of that bad bacteria in our gut, it disrupts the intestinal walls that line our digestive system. So the process of digestion, of absorption and elimination is impaired. I like to call our digestive system our homeland security. And one of the most important roles within homeland security is played out by our immune system, which lives within our gut. When we have this dysbiosis, we have a breach in our homeland security. And our immune system, which I like to refer to all the time as our army, is on hyperdrive, overdrive. Because of all of this bad bacteria, our immune system goes to work, and it's doing things and creating this this systemic inflammation, which is where chronic disease is being attributed today. But I want you to think, well, you're probably thinking, well, do I have dysbiosis within my gut? And I just want to show you a few signs and symptoms of what you could be experiencing if you have dysbiosis. So number one is fatigue. And the reason why dysbiosis causes fatigue is because the nutrients that are required to give us energy are the same nutrients required to coordinate and activate our army, our immune system. So if we have dysbiosis going on in our gut and our army is on overdrive, all of the nutrients is given to coordinate that army, which taxes us and makes us feel tired. However, if we can regain balance within our gut, the nutrients will go where it needs to go, and we'll have vitality and energy. Another sign and symptom that's very common to most Americans is constipation. So just like in having energy, the cells that are required to perform peristalsis, which is just basically moving food through your small and large intestine, those cells require nutrients, and the nutrients that specifically come from healthy food. However, the nutrients are given to the army instead, because if you have dysbiosis, one of those signs and symptoms is going to be constipation. So instead of the nutrients going to the cells required to do peristalsis, it's going to fund the army. What happens? You back up, you get constipated. And that's another thing that creates further dysbiosis within our gut, is when we're constipated, the bacteria that we need to be eliminating is not eliminated. It's being held in our colon and backed up into our intestines. And that creates more dysbiosis in our body. But if we can rebalance our gut again, get rid of the toxins, feed the good guys, then we don't have to be giving all of our nutrients to the army because we don't have this dysbiosis. We can then give the nutrients to the cells required for peristalsis, and we have regular bowel movements. It's amazing how our body works. The last sign and symptom that I want to talk about is depression, because so many Americans deal with depression and are on antidepressants. So the reason why I want to talk about depression is because 90% of serotonin is in our gut. It's produced in our gut. Serotonin is one of the neurotransmitters that makes us feel happy. It's a protein-based molecule, just like many of the molecules in our body, requires nutrients. If your gut is imbalanced, if you have dysbiosis, and your nutrients are going to fund your army, the nutrients required for serotonin production are not there because they have gone, they've moved away to coordinate your army. So what happens? You go to your doctor and you just tell your basic symptoms, and they give you a prescription for an antidepressant. And what that antidepressant does is help the brain, which produces that other 10% of serotonin, produce more. But what happened was the doctor never dug into the soil and looked at the root of the problem. He just looked at the brown leaf and he was painting the leaf green. And that's what Dr. Younger was talking about in his gut, in his Clean Gut book. So all of that can be very discouraging to hear, that, you know, we have this dysbiosis within our gut, which is creating chronic disease. And the good news is that our bodies were created and equipped with intelligence. We, just like this plant that's coming up out of the ground, it's a little tiny plant that's breaking up through the concrete. Our bodies are equipped with that same intelligence. And a lot of times, disease is just a form of survival, and our body has learned to cope with the dysbiosis, and what is presented is the chronic disease. That's what shows up. So just like, I just want to give you an example. So like the fight or flight response in our body, if you're on the highway and someone cuts you off and you almost wreck your car, you feel adrenaline pumping through your body, and that is your adrenal glands secreting hormones to help you have the max chance of survival. The hormones that are secreted help your brain work faster and oxygen flow faster to your cells so that you can think better and react faster to increase your chance for survival. Well, our bodies were made the same exact way. And I want to turn to talking about how do we get our healthy back? How do we take back control of our gut, restore this dysbiosis? And we do that through food. I'm so thankful that I have found the Juice Plus company and that I get to partner with them to help people understand that in order to overcome chronic disease, you have to pay attention to what you are putting into your body. So you have two types of bacteria within your gut, bad and good. The bad bacteria are fed by the toxins that we put in our mouth, the fast food, the processed food, the animal products that are fed antibiotics, and just the toxic environment that we live in. So if we eliminate those things from our diet and for a long enough time to kill off that bad bacteria, that prevalence of chronic disease is going to go away. However, at the same breath, we have to feed the good bacteria. That just doesn't get better. You have to feed it to make it to get better. The way that we feed our good bacteria is through plants. Plants have the phytonutrients, the nutrients required to produce serotonin, the nutrients required to give us energy, and their nutrients required for peristalsis. All of those nutrients come from the things that we find in fruits and vegetables. And I love that Juice Plus makes it so easy for us. We don't have to juice and eat 30 different fruits and vegetables. I mean, we want you to, because that makes you healthy. But Juice Plus makes it so simple because you can take the capsules or the gummies, and that's what I did for Cohen, and give your body the food that it needs to make good, healthy bacteria. And we have so many stories of diabetes, getting better, people coming off their insulin shots, and blood pressure going down and coming off of beta blockers and those types of medications. And the stories are great because that gives us hope that we can do this. But Juice Plus doesn't just have stories, but it has research behind it. It has research that says that people who were having cardiovascular disease, when they took Juice Plus, the markers in their blood got better. It showed that the inflammation was going down. So we know that fruits and vegetables actually do work and do get into our body and create this healthy balance within our gut. And when that balance is restored, then our health can be restored. So I want to just end my talk with a trailer that's coming out. It's hitting cities around the United States, coming very soon. And it's just talking about what I've said. What you put in your mouth has a big deal with disease. And so I want to leave you tonight with this video, and then Melody will follow up and just talk about how to get started. And if you have any questions, we can open that at the end for you. Let me stop sharing. Okay.
I was grossly overweight. I had high blood pressure, I had high cholesterol, and I still had diabetes. And when my son was 5 weeks old, I got a call from my mom that my dad was being rushed to the hospital for open heart surgery.
Everybody, and I mean everybody, has a health problem.
He couldn't write his name, and what he was saying coming out of his mouth was not what it was supposed to be.
I felt as if someone would grab my arm and squeeze it so hard, and an electric shock, an electric current would pass just right through it.
You can see what the person is eating by looking at the plaque in their arteries.
So many of my family members ended up dying of heart disease and cancer.
We cut people open, we bypass their clogged arteries, you tell them they were cured, and more often than not, they would go home and do all the things that had caused the problem in the first place.
We had the cure, we've had it for decades, yet hundreds of thousands of people continue to die from this preventable, treatable, reversible disease.
Health is not a matter of chance. And it's not a matter of your destiny being written on your genes and it's absolutely immutable.
I believe our body was made a certain way to run on a certain fuel. And we have been putting the wrong fuel in our body.
We become addicted to it. And the addiction that occurs is very similar to the addiction that occurs with nicotine.
I had the perception that I was a victim, that it was in my genes. I had a stroke, I had to live with that. I was diabetic, I had to live with that. And I had a basket of pills, I had to live with that.
Approximately 106,000 people die from drug side effects. Now that's just in hospitals, and that's just 1 year.
My sister called me and told me my dad had passed away from cancer. And that was a turning point for me.
We have folks that are fatter than ever. We have kids that are fatter than ever. Everybody, it seems, is on medication.
If people really lived the right way, they wouldn't need these pills.
I wasn't making any progress on the pills or medications that they gave me from the hospital.
People that are eating the standard American diet don't understand the scientific implications of that in their body.
A lot of the illnesses that I was treating were being brought on by lifestyle, in particular dietary habits.
In medical school, there was very little training in nutrition.
Our doctors are not getting this amount of this. And if they're not, then you're not getting it.
There has to be a paradigm shift in our medical education.
Foods are the cause of diabetes, of heart disease, of many forms of cancer, of hypertension. And if they're the cause, they can also be the solution. That's been a totally new idea for many people, but it's a very powerful one.
I had to really look at it for a couple of years and see patients that I knew should be dead on my conventional training, alive and well, tumors melting away or totally gone.
The doctor called me at home and he says, "Hey, I just got your blood work back from the lab and I was reviewing your results and you're no longer diabetic."
The most important decision anyone makes every day is what they elect to put in their mouths.
I'm changing what I put in my body, but that's what I've known for 36 years, so it's very scary. So in the nutrition classes that I teach, a big component of that is taking people to the grocery store and doing hands-on training and teach people label reading. So I decided I'm going to do this. But then the next thing was, how in the world am I going to cook? I don't know how to cook like this.
We demonstrate a meal, show them how to do it, let them taste it. They realize, this really tastes pretty good.
Let's demystify this notion that if you are a plant-based eater, you are giving up everything. If food tastes good, regardless of what it's made of.
It clicked. I thought, this is something that I can do.
So I went into my practice and I took my prescription pad out. And instead of writing medications, I would write a recipe for a smoothie for breakfast.
I just want to be healthy.
When you're eating good quality, unprocessed, organic, whole foods, there's no way you can do it wrong.
I am healthier now than I've been in my whole life.
I realized that here I was in control all along.
The vegetables and the fruits and the whole grains and the beans, those foods have power that you never imagined. It's time to put it to work.
I don't want you to get to a point that you're dying and then you're going to listen.
All right. Well, I just thank you guys so very much for participating in our amazing gut health talk. And to Kylie, I thank you for sharing your heart and your wisdom and just your words of inspiration, because I know everybody probably knows at least one, if not 2 or 3 people that could benefit from something like this. It's something that we all deal with. I know on a personal level, it's been something that I've struggled with for the longest time. And, when I joined the Juice Plus company, it wasn't about just, making extra money. That's kind of a bonus. But, I get to lock arms with people that have such a like-minded just mission. They see that there is an opportunity to change the things that they know that can change. And that has probably been the biggest benefit. God just knew that putting Juice Plus in my lap was going to be more than I could see that first day. It turned into something that is basically, my passion, and where my sister and I are heading is pretty extraordinary. We have a passion for families, and we have a passion for kids. And, it's something that I hope that you took something away from tonight. And so there's basically 3 reasons why you came on tonight. And if it's just to be a support for us or for the person that invited you, then thank you, because we need the support. We need people to cheer us on and to be encouraging. But also with that, being a support could also be, listening. And when you come across a girlfriend that's just like, God, I'm so tired of my kid sick and I don't know what to do, then you could be like, I just heard an amazing talk. I'm going to get you connected with those girls. Or maybe you're yourself sitting there and you're like, I know that God has just really brought this on my heart, and enough is enough. And I'm taking healthy back, and I'm going to take it. And I'm going to take charge of my life, and, enough said. And with that, if that is your choice, then I ask you to contact the person that invited you tonight and to get with them, because with that is not just a box of pills or a box of veggies and fruits and capsules, but it's everything. It's a meal plan if you need it. It's a support team if you need it. It's steps that you need to take, and it's one simple step and one simple change at a time. And if you're so passionate and you can't stand it, or if in the middle of the night tonight you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't stand it, there's people out there that need to hear this, then we need you. We need warriors that are willing to stand up and to help us share the mission, because I know only so many people, but you know all the other people. So with that, everybody can get connected. So we thank you so very much for coming on tonight. Juice Plus Company has given myself and my family the ability to dream, and that is what it's all about. So with that, thank you very much, and I hope you guys have an amazing evening.